Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. We've got a really interesting pile of listener questions and articles today, and it all seems to revolve around something we probably don't think about too much: notebook size.
Yeah, notebook size.
At first glance, it might seem like, oh, whatever size you like, just grab a notebook. But as we dig into this, it turns out there are a lot of practical considerations we should probably factor in.
Absolutely. It goes way beyond just aesthetics,
Yeah.
picking a size that just looks nice on your desk. We're really talking about how well a notebook actually, functions for you. Like, does it help you get things done or does it kind of get in the way?
Right. So for this deep dive, our mission, if you will, is to really help you figure out which notebook size might actually be that perfect fit for your needs. And we're lucky enough to have this really in-depth guide that draws on, get this, over 10 years of manufacturing experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. A decade of real-world insights, seeing what works, what doesn't.
Exactly. So we're not just theorizing here. And the guide really drives home the point that, size isn't just about looks. It's about, like you were saying, usability. Do
Yeah.
you have enough space to actually write comfortably? Or are you constantly cramming things in? Or is it the opposite? Like, is it so big you can't even fit it in your bag?
Portability,
Yeah,
huge.
portability, exactly. And even presentation. Believe it or not, in some settings, the size of your notebook can actually subtly impact how you're perceived. Like if you're in a professional environment, maybe there's a certain size that just looks a bit more, I don't know, polished or put together.
That's a good point. First impressions matter.
They do. And then,
Right.
of course, we have functionality, right? Like,
Yeah.
does it lie flat so you can write easily? Does the size work well with the kind of binding you prefer?
Right. If you're constantly battling your notebook, that defeats the whole purpose.
It does. So we're going to break all of this down, and hopefully by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to avoid, those notebook frustrations and pick the size that really sets you up for success, whatever success means for you.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where form meets function.
So let's unpack this a bit more. Let's talk usability first. If you're someone who, let's say, loves mind maps or big diagrams or just has bigger handwriting, a tiny notebook is probably going to be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're going to feel so restricted, like you can't really get your ideas out.
Totally. On the flip side, if you're mostly jotting down quick reminders or tiny to-do lists, a huge notebook might just feel like overkill.
So much unused space, right?
Right, and it becomes this big, bulky thing you have to lug around.
Which leads us right into portability. If your
Mm.
notebook is going to live in your bag or your pocket, size is critical.
Couldn't agree more. I've made that mistake before, trust me. A notebook that's too big just becomes a burden. And then there's presentation. Now, this might not be top of mind for everyone, but like the guide mentions, if you're in a professional setting, using your notebook in client meetings or presentations, the size can actually matter.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it sends a message.
Yeah.
A certain size just conveys, I don't know, a sense of professionalism or organization.
Exactly. And then functionality. We've got to talk about how well a notebook actually works for you, right? Like, does it lie flat? Is the binding compatible with the size? Can you tear pages out cleanly if you need to? All these little things add up.
They really do. And the guide, it digs into all this. It's like they've thought of everything.
So we've talked about why size matters. Now let's talk about the how. How are these sizes even determined? Turns out there are systems in place, logical frameworks, and get this, it's kind of a tale of two systems. We have the ANSI system, that's the American National Standards Institute standards, and then we have the ISO system, which is the International Organization for Standardization. Like, have you ever wondered why paper sizes are different in different parts of the world?
Oh, yeah. I remember traveling and being like, what is going on with this paper?
Right, it's like, why can't we all just agree? Well, it's because of these systems. So let's start with ANSI. The guide mentions it was established in 1992, and we're all familiar with the letter size. That's the 8.5 by 11 inches. That actually became a U.S. government standard way back in 1921, and then it really took off in the 1980s. And then you also have ledger or tabloid in the ANSI system for those bigger formats.
All right, those larger documents that need more space.
And that's pretty much the standard we're used to here in North America. But then there's ISO. This one's got a big international presence, especially the A series. A4, for example, that's a staple in lots of places outside of North America, and its roots go way back to 19th century Europe.
That's a lot of history behind a piece of paper.
It is, but here's where it gets really interesting. The ISO A series, and actually all ISO sizes, they follow a specific aspect ratio, 1 to the square root of 2. Now, I know that sounds mathy, but it has a really cool practical application.
Oh, I love when math becomes useful.
Me too.
Yeah.
So you can fold any A-size paper in half and you get the next size down perfectly. Like A4 folds perfectly into A5, the proportions stay consistent. It's elegant, really.
Very elegant.
Right. And the guide points out that the ANSI system, it uses two different aspect ratios, one for smaller sizes, another for bigger ones, so it doesn't have that same clean scalability. And I'm thinking, doesn't that cause problems? Like when you're resizing documents, does that ever mess things up?
Oh, yeah. It can be a real headache sometimes. Margins, layouts, they all go out of whack.
Right.
ISO is so much smoother for that kind of thing.
Okay, so ISO has that advantage. Now, ISO also has the B series. Have you ever run into B sizes? They're not as common.
Yeah, they are a bit more niche. Like the guide mentions ID3 passport size is similar to B7, and B5 is often used for bookbinding. What's interesting about the B series is that the sizes, they're like the in-betweeners. A B5, for instance, it falls right between an A4 and A5.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like they provide more granular options, filling in those gaps between the A sizes.
Exactly. More choices, more precision.
I like it. So, armed with this knowledge of sizing systems, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about specific notebook sizes and what they're generally best suited for, according to all this manufacturing expertise. We'll start with A4. That's the 210 by 297 millimeters. The guide says this is the go-to for offices, formal reports, professional writing, the kind of stuff that might end up in a binder or a presentation.
Yeah, the classic office workhorse.
Exactly. Then we've got B5, a bit smaller, at 176 by 250 millimeters. This one's popular in education, and people who like larger journals seem to gravitate towards it. It's a nice balance of space and portability, though maybe not as ubiquitous as A4 in office settings.
Right, it's got that sweet spot.
Then there's the beloved A5, 148 by 210 millimeters. The guide calls this the everyday carry, perfect for bullet journaling. And I've got to say, that tracks with what we see out in the world. A5 seems like the gold standard for bullet journalers. Plenty of space, but not overwhelming.
Yeah, it's got that Goldilocks thing going on. Not too big, not too small. Just right.
Exactly. Now, going a bit smaller, we have B6 at 125 by 176 millimeters. This is often recommended for creative writing or to-do lists.
Yeah.
A bit more compact, but still enough room to work with.
Yeah, I love a good B6. Nice and portable, but not cramped.
Okay, then we go down to A6, 105 by 148 millimeters. Pocket notes, travel journals, that's where A6 shines. It's the size that easily slips into a pocket or a small bag. True portability.
And if you need even smaller, there's the pocket size, also known as B7, around 90 by 125 millimeters. This one's all about ultra portability, like if you're out in the field taking notes or doing quick sketches.
Right, like the ultimate on-the-go companion.
Exactly.
And then we have the tiny but mighty card book. It's just 62 by 88 millimeters. The guide says it's great for micronotes or even as a cool alternative to sticky notes. It's like the tiniest notebook imaginable.
I love those. They're so cute and functional.
Right, they're adorable. Okay, and then of course we can't forget our ANSI friends. There's the letter size, which we talked about, the U.S. Office Standard. And then there's Junior Legal, 127 by 203 millimeters, often used for field notes or in business meetings.
Junior Legal, yeah. It's got that nice narrow format that's easy to handle.
Okay, so we've got this whole spectrum of sizes laid out, but how do you know which one is right for you? Let's think about some real-life scenarios. Let's say you're someone who's always on the go. You're traveling, you're commuting, you're just constantly moving.
Well, in that case, those compact sizes are your best bet. The card book, B7 or pocket size, A6, those are your go-to travel buddies. They're lightweight, they fit anywhere, perfect for jotting down quick notes, journaling on the fly, or capturing those random ideas that pop up when you're out and about.
What about if you're a student or you just really like taking detailed notes every day, but you don't want a notebook that feels like, a brick in your bag?
Then A5 and B5 are your friends. The guide actually highlights A5 as being super popular for bullet journaling because it offers that great balance of space and portability.
Yeah, A5 is a classic for a reason. And B5, that gives you even more room to stretch out, which can be great for lecture notes or if you just like having a bigger canvas to work with.
Exactly.
Okay, what about our creative folks? What if you love mind mapping, sketching, doodling, that kind of thing? What sizes work best for those activities?
For creative work, the guide recommends B6, A5, even A4. It really depends on how much space you need. B6 and A5 are great if you want to keep things compact, but if you need to really spread out, A4 is your friend. The more space you have, the more freely you can express yourself, visually speaking.
And for our listeners who are in the business world or who deal with a lot of formal documents, the guide's pretty clear. Standard sizes are key.
Absolutely. For professional use, you want to stick with A4, letter, maybe junior legal. Compatibility with printers and other documents is essential. You don't want to be messing around with weird sizes when you're trying to get work done.
So now let's get even more specific. Let's break down each size and talk about its pros and cons, the things you should watch out for. Let's start with A6.
A6, it's amazing for portability, like we said. It fits in your pocket, easy peasy. But the downside is the limited space. If you're a verbose writer or need a lot of space for details, A6 might not be your best friend.
Okay, good to know. Now, what about A5?
A5, the guide calls it the most versatile, and it really is. You get a good amount of space, it's still portable, what's not to love? The only thing to keep in mind is that for really big projects, super detailed drawings, it might feel a little cramped.
All right, B6.
B6, it strikes that nice balance between space and portability. Perfect for personal diaries, creative journaling, that kind of thing. The one thing is, it might not be as easy to find as A5 in some places. Just something to be aware of.
Got it, B5.
B5, now we're talking spacious. College notebooks, detailed planners, this is where B5 shines. It's still portable, but definitely not pocket-sized. So if you're looking for something super compact, this ain't it. A4, professional, printer-friendly, the gold standard for reports, office documents, all that jazz.
Yeah.
The trade-off is portability. It's not exactly a travel companion.
And then the pocket size, or B7.
Ultra portable, fits anywhere, perfect for quick notes and sketches. But obviously the space is limited. It's for those moments when you just need to jot something down quickly, not for writing your novel.
Right, right. And letter.
Letter, the U.S. standard, great if that's what you need for work, but might not play nicely with international printing standards. Just something to consider if you're collaborating globally.
Fantastic. We've covered a lot of ground here. And, there's another layer to this whole size thing. Binding. Like the way a notebook is bound actually impacts how well it works with different sizes.
Oh yeah, binding is huge.
Yeah.
You don't want a binding that fights against the size of the notebook.
Exactly. So for those smaller sizes, like A6 and B7, the guide recommends saddle stitch or spiral binding. They keep things lightweight and portable, which makes sense, right?
Makes perfect sense.
Hey.
You wouldn't want a bulky binding on a tiny notebook.
Exactly. For medium sizes, like A5, B6, and B5, you've got more options. Case-bound, perfect binding, Singer's sewn these, all work well depending on how much durability and flexibility you need.
And for the big guys, A4 and letter, you usually see hardcover for that professional, sturdy feel or coil binding, so you can lay the notebook completely flat, which is great for writing. And then there are the ring binders and insert systems, which give you ultimate flexibility. You can add or remove pages as needed.
So much to consider, but it makes you realize how all these details, they really affect how enjoyable and functional a notebook is.
It's all about finding that perfect combination that suits your style.
And speaking of style, the guide actually provides some really interesting insights into global notebook trends, like which sizes are popular in different parts of the world. I found that fascinating.
Oh yeah, the cultural aspect is super interesting.
So in North America, no surprise, letter size reigns supreme because of our office and legal standards. But A5 and junior legal are also pretty popular.
Makes sense.
In Europe, it's all about A5, A4, and B5. They're big on those ISO standards.
It's just part of their everyday life over there.
Exactly. And Japan, they're all about B6 and B5, especially for planners. It's like they've really embraced those sizes for organization and scheduling.
It's fascinating how different regions develop their own preferences.
It is. And then in Southeast Asia, there's a growing trend towards A5 and pocket notebooks. Maybe it's because they need both practical writing space and something that's easy to carry in busy urban environments.
Makes sense. You got to adapt to your surroundings.
So the big takeaway here is that there's no one best size. It's all about what works best for you in your specific context.
Absolutely. It's all about you, your lifestyle, your needs, how you actually use a notebook. Are you a minimalist,
Right.
a maximalist, creative, corporate? All of that plays a role.
And the guide really stresses thinking about things like portability, writing habits, and even how you want your notes to look in the end. Like, are they just for you, or are you going to share them with others?
It's about being intentional. Don't just grab any old notebook. Think about what you're going to use it for and pick the size that will actually help you succeed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here is a final thought-provoking question for you to ponder. What task or project might you try approaching with a different size notebook than you normally would? And how might that small change, that shift in size, actually have a bigger impact on your workflow, your creativity, your organization? Think about it. Maybe that small change could make a big difference.
It's all about experimentation, right? Finding what works best for you. A notebook is a powerful tool. and choosing the right size is the first step to unlocking its full potential.
Couldn't agree more. So go out there, explore different sizes, and find the one that helps you do your best work, whatever that looks like for you.
Absolutely. Happy note-taking, everyone.
And until next time, keep diving deep.